Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 294, The Purpose of the Sealing of These Set Apart Ones, Part 1. If you want to live, you first must die. The podcast objectives are reveal the purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones, restate the primary reason why many will not be sealed, analyze the difficulties of spiritual surgery, and reveal why you should live and not die. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. Who will inherit the earth? Now, we concluded the most recent podcast, hardening the truth that the Great Tribulation period will not occur in these last days. Although it is an authentic end times event, the Great Tribulation is nothing we should be overly concerned about in these last days, for it has already passed. In coming to this pivotal conclusion, we have concluded our lessons on the sequence of the sealing of these set apart ones. And thus, we have one final guideline we must fulfill to verify the authenticity of this season. Enter the guideline of purpose. Now, as many of you know, purpose is the first of the 7 guidelines for every word of prophecy. It is the foundation. And yet, at the beginning of this phase, on January 1st, 2024, I made it clear that the Father had led me to start our analyses of the sealing with the people and the place. 6 months later, we are finally ready to discuss the purpose of this crucial season, which, considering everything we have learned over the past 27 podcasts, should not be too hard to gather. And yet, I will state the purpose of the sealing formally in the form of a treasure box. The purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones is to provide a spiritual marker upon all who have been chosen to participate in the millennial kingdom. No doubt, this is the essence of set apartness. Vis-a-vis, we are being set apart from the rest of the world, so the angels of death know who to destroy during the great distress and who to keep alive. Truly, there are other ancillary purposes which feed into this summation. However, at the end of the day, this is what the season of sealing is all about. It's about determining who will inherit the earth. It feels like dying. Now, 27 podcasts into this phase, and I believe you have a pretty good idea of what you must do to obtain the seal of Elohim. This is why the Father not only led me to begin this phase with a detailed analysis of the people of the sealing, but we have spent more than half of this phase analyzing this guideline. More than anything, it's because Yahuwah wants you to know what the set apart ones look like. And of all the matters we have discussed concerning this exposition, none are more critical than the factor of lawlessness. Here is why. The number one reason why many within the extended nation of Israel will not be sealed is because they are operating in at least one of the degrees of lawlessness. Here lies the problem. To wit, there are 80 degrees of lawlessness. Not only this, but there are hundreds of offshoots of these 80 degrees. A certain truth that should make the following inflection point certainly clear. Consider it carefully. Eliminating the 80 degrees of lawlessness from your life will be the most difficult thing you ever do. And yet, you must succeed at all costs. For not only is the millennial kingdom at stake, my dear friends, everlasting life is at stake. Now, this is clear to see if you understand the purpose of the great white throne judgment, i.e., the final judgment. That is, to determine if we have any outstanding debts of sin. Here lies the inflection and the great peril of lawlessness. Consider this. Whether a sin of commission or a sin of omission, lawlessness is the source of everything we do or don't do that can be classified as sin. Therefore, as lawlessness is the source of all our sins, the only way we can stop sinning is by first eliminating every degree of lawlessness from our being. Here again, this is not a complex concept to understand. However, it is an extremely complex enterprise to implement for a critical reason I will offer as another inflection point. Consider this one carefully and bookmark it if you are led. Lawlessness is illustrated by a complex network of spiritual viruses and diseases. Once you are infected, it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes your nature. Therefore, the only way to eliminate lawlessness from your being is to transform your nature. And the only way you can transform your nature is by spiritual surgery, a complex spiritual process which feels like living while simultaneously it feels like dying. The opportunity to be like Yahushua Messiah. Now, this is precisely why so many within the extended nation of Israel are refusing to walk in the way of holiness. As a spiritual process, we must follow to eliminate the 80 degrees of lawlessness feels like dying. They are not willing to endure it. Here is what they fail to realize. You cannot be saved without enduring this spiritual process. To wit, the multiple spiritual surgeries required to eliminate your degrees of lawlessness and replace them with degrees of holiness. As I have said before, to live, one must die. Vis-a-vis your sinful nature, the imposter of self, and your flesh must die. And the scriptures support my trust. Romans 8:12 through 13 is revealing. So then, brothers, we are not debtors to the flesh to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you are going to die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. 1 Corinthians 15:22 and 31. For as all die in Adam, so also all shall be made alive in Messiah. I affirm by the boasting in you, which I have in Messiah Yahushua our Master, I die day by day. Brothers and sisters, Shaul could not have been any clearer in this matter. For not only does he confirm the parallel nature of life and death and the spiritual evolution of these set apart ones, but he also testifies that he dies day by day. Now, here's a question. What does Shaul mean when he testifies saying, I die day by day? The answer, he is confirming the model of constant death required for all men and women to be transformed into the image and likeness of Yahushua Messiah. This speaks to the model of spiritual surgery I mentioned earlier in this podcast. To wit, the spiritual surgeries we endure in our pursuit of holiness require us to kill out our sinful nature and replace it with a holy nature akin to Yahushua Messiah. My dear friends, this is what it means to become a new creation. It is a testimony reserved for all who endure the spiritual surgeries required for us to eliminate every degree of lawlessness. 2 Corinthians 5:17 is revealing. Therefore, if anyone is in Messiah, he is a renewed creature. The old matters have passed away. See, all matters have become renewed. In line with this verse, the old matters of lawlessness do indeed pass away. And yet, there is more to the transformation process than this. My dear friends, there is also the matter of what we gain. Consider this. When Shaul reveals all matters have become renewed, he is revealing that our sinful nature is replaced with a set apart nature similar to Yahushua Messiah. Although many fail to appreciate it, this is one of the most amazingly wonderful opportunities we have been given on the earth. That is the opportunity to be like Yahushua Messiah. A chance at life. Now, it goes without saying that the next phase of this podcast ministry will be centered on this opportunity. To wit, Yahushua Messiah is our spiritual standard, a man who knew no lawlessness and did no sin. Herein lies the inflection. Consider this. Our transformation into the spiritual image and likeness of Yahushua Messiah is not only the opportunity of a lifetime, it is also a requirement upon the seal of Elohim. Romans 12:1-2 reads, I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Elohim, to present your bodies a living sacrifice, set apart, well-pleasing to Elohim, your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim. Without controversy, this passage reveals why we must be transformed. Vis-a-vis, it is so that we can become doers of the word, or as Shaul puts it, so that you prove what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim. Not only this, but Shaul hardens the role that death plays in this process. For we have been commanded to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. And we are told that our daily death is our reasonable service. And thus, it would be irreligious for us to call ourselves children of the Most High Elohim if we are unwilling to present our bodies as a living sacrifice and endure the spiritual surgeries required for us to be transformed into the image and likeness of his only brought forth Son. Hear me carefully, my dear friends. We cannot succeed in fulfilling the intent of the restoration message and become doers of the word if we are not transformed. As I often say, in line with the scriptures, your sin will find you out. And thus, we must get rid of all our sins by eliminating all the degrees of lawlessness that are within. And this, my friends, is the purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones. This is how we qualify ourselves for the millennial kingdom. Now, here again, this purpose is the focus of the next phase in this podcast ministry. To wit, every podcast from July 1st will be dedicated to ensuring you have fulfilled all the requirements upon the seal of Elohim and eliminated every degree of lawlessness. Although I've broadcasted this upcoming phase for more than a month, I cannot tell you how crucial it will be. My dear friends, you must believe me. This is not a matter of believing. This is a matter of knowing. Trust me, there are millions within the extended nation who believe they will be sealed, and they are all wrong. Why? It's because they didn't take the time to prove their beliefs, and thus their belief was never converted into knowledge. And this, my friends, is why you are here. You are here because you, like me, are not prepared to go into the great distress without knowing that you have fulfilled all the requirements upon the seal. Like I said before, there's too much at stake. Now, if you're ready to start this next phase, that's great because we start next week. Next week, my friends, is the beginning of the most critical season of your life. And should you succeed it, I can make you the following guarantee. If you follow the spirit-led teaching you receive, and if you endure every spiritual surgery required to eliminate every degree of lawlessness from your being, you will obtain the seal of Elohim, and you will know it, and you will be guarded in these last days. Brothers and sisters, Yahuwah is offering you a chance at life. For why should you die? If you are in the extended nation of Israel, you have been called to live. And thus I ask again, why should you die? I trust you consider these matters carefully, and I hope you choose life. If you do, there are two final podcasts I will share concerning the purpose of this season of sealing. And then we will make sure you fulfill this purpose. We will make sure you obtain the seal of Elohim. Now, here is the final word. We are on the verge of forever, and now is the time to get it together. If you're paying attention to what is transpiring in our world, specifically the financial crises, then you know we don't have much longer. My dear friends, we are seeing multiple signs that the sifting of the nations is near, and thus we know the sealing of the set apart ones is coming to an end. Therefore, and as I said before, now is the time to make sure you have the seal. And remember, when it comes to the seal, it's a matter of knowing. For at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter how you feel. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today. And as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction. And if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the spiritual surgeries that are waiting for you. I want you to focus on the degrees of lawlessness you already know are a problem for you. And then ask yourself the following question: am I ready to take the next step and eliminate the spiritual deficits from my life? Am I prepared to do whatever it takes to endure the spiritual process of transformation such that I become a new creation in Yahushua Messiah? Take my advice and don't stop praying until you find it within yourself to answer these questions with a resounding yes. And be ready to get back at it in 2 days as we continue preparing you for the most critical season in your life. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 294. The purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones, part 1. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 296. The purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones, part 2. I will post this podcast on Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.